In my experience, the only thing kids like more than chocolate cake is a huge chocolate cake. So I'm going to make a double fudge sheet cake for Lily and David Palmer, and I think they're going to just love it. First, I need 2½ cups of flour. This is all-purpose flour. Just want to make sure there's no leavening in it. Okay, the next thing is cocoa powder. It's really important for good chocolate cake. Just choose a really rich cocoa powder, and I need 1½ cups. I'm sifting all these ingredients. It's going to combine them, and it's going to make sure there are no little lumps in it. Next is 2¼ teaspoons of baking soda. You don't want a cake that's too light, and you don't want one that's too dense, just right, which is why I prefer, instead of using flour that has leavening in it, to do my own leavening. ½ teaspoon of salt. It's really important, particularly for chocolate cake. I'm just going to sift this all together. That cocoa powder smells so good. There are little bits in the bottom of the sieve. Just run your fingers along it. Sort of push it through the sieve, and you get every single bit. Wonderful. Okay, next, butter and sugar. You need ½ pound of unsalted butter. That's 2 sticks. It's really important that it's room temperature butter because it really just makes a light and fluffy cake. I need a cup of granulated sugar. And a cup of brown sugar. Brown sugar is really granulated sugar with some molasses added. So 1 cup of brown sugar right in. But what it does is give a little extra depth of flavor. I'm just going to let that cream together on medium speed for about 3 to 4 minutes until it gets really light and fluffy, and then it absorbs all the other ingredients. So next I'm going to get the eggs ready. And these should be room temperature too. I never crack an egg on the bowl because otherwise you just get eggshell in the bowl. And nobody needs a crunchy eggshell. Okay, that's 3. I'm just going to add them one at a time until they get really absorbed into the butter and sugar mixture. Okay, that's 3 eggs. This would be a great time to give the bowl a scrape, make sure it's really well mixed. So just turn it off and just scrape down the edges of the bowl. The key to making a cake is make sure it's really well mixed so you don't end up with a lot of flour in one place and a lot of butter in another place. And actually even the beaters, because sometimes they get a little jammed up. Okay, that looks good. This is looking really nice and creamy. It's wonderful. The next ingredient is vanilla. I love good vanilla. 3 teaspoons of good vanilla. Okay, next the wet ingredients. First thing is buttermilk. Buttermilk's actually low-fat milk that has a culture added, so it's very thick. My grandparents used to drink it. I think it's disgusting, but it's fabulous in cakes. So I need 1½ cups of buttermilk. Sour cream also keeps the cake really moist. So I need 3/4 cup of sour cream. That's half, a little extra. And the last thing is coffee. Coffee, chocolate, I always talk about how they go together. And I have some left over from breakfast. So 3 tablespoons of coffee, brewed coffee. If you don't have freshly brewed coffee, you can just make a little bit of instant coffee. Brewed coffee always tastes so much better. I'm just going to give it a little whisk so it's mixed together. So I have my dry ingredients, I have the wet ingredients, and I have the butter and sugar mixture. This is a classic thing to do for a cake to keep it light and moist. It's on low speed. I'm just going to add the dry ingredients first and the wet ingredients alternating. Really slowly. And that way it keeps the batter very light. If you put all the dry ingredients in first, it would get really dense. If you put all the wet ingredients in first, it would be too thin. The whole kitchen smells like chocolate already. Perfect. This is called a half-sheet pan. It used to be you could only find it in restaurant supply places, but now almost every cookware store has it. What I did is I buttered and floured it first. You want to flour it and then tap out the flour so you don't have excess flour in the pan. Just push the batter to the corners and make sure it's really even. So this is going to go into the oven 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes, just until it springs back and the cake tester comes out clean. One of the best things about a cake this size is it's kind of like this blank canvas. I'm going to get all kinds of fabulous candies and the kids can decorate it. Now, how fun is that gonna be? Can't wait to see this one. This looks like amazing frosting. Wow. It's so good, and it's easy to make. I'll show you how. First, start by making a ganache. Melt 24 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips in a bowl over a pan of simmering water. Add 1.5 cups of heavy cream. Stir it once in a while until you have really smooth, melted chocolate. Then with the heat off, add 2 tablespoons of light corn syrup. This makes it really shiny. To give the chocolate depth of flavor, I add a half teaspoon of good vanilla. It makes such a difference. Then this is really important. Allow it to cool completely to room temperature before you go on. Pour it into a mixer fitted with a whisk attachment and add a half a stick of room temperature butter and whisk it all together until it becomes a really thick, rich, delicious chocolate frosting. It just takes a few minutes. So I've got a cooled cake, lots of buttercream frosting, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask the kids to decorate it. I mean, is this double chocolate or what? The whole key to this is to make it look really kind of rough and homemade, which of course it is. This is called a palette knife, but you can also use a dinner knife if you don't have one. And just smooth it out. I actually think buttercream was originally invented to keep the cake moist. It sort of acts as a sealer. So you want to make sure it goes right to the edge. You want something very earthy, very simple, big swirls. And it's just the base for the candy that the kids are going to decorate it with. Okay, little taste, make sure it's okay. So good. Well, that's my part done. Now it's up to the kids.